All right, so we're sitting here with Dr. Jeremy Butler. You've got an amazing journey. For people who are watching this video, how did you get started in martial arts?
Well, I started when I was 12 years old, and honestly, it was really out of necessity. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, a community where, you know, you have to be prepared to protect yourself, just kind of the reality of the circumstance I was in. So found a program at a park district through a church ministry that was nonprofit for inner city youth. So I jumped on that opportunity, and then really I just never stopped training since. So it's been 24 years.
So you've been training 24 years, started at the age of 12. Mm-hmm. At what point in your life did you realize I wanted to go into law enforcement, and what motivated you to do that?
Well, I had well, this kind of goes back a little bit. I had a pretty rough incident with police when I was early teens. I had a situation where police officers pulled a gun on me coming outside of my house because they thought I had a weapon for some reason. I did not. So that left a really negative perception of law enforcement throughout my teenage years. Then I went to college, and I'm going to grad school, coming to ISU, and I met the chief of police at ISU, and he really kind of sold me on the idea that if we want to improve issues in law enforcement, we need more minority representation, we need more people with educational backgrounds, martial arts backgrounds even, to help with that. And so he kind of sold me on the idea, and then, you know, I ended up 7 years in law enforcement before transitioning.
So you didn't have a plan of going into law enforcement when you went to college. You were in college majoring something totally different.
So my entire background, kinesiology, recreation administration, all of it was more tied to martial arts, you know, so studying human movement because of my interest in that. And so the law enforcement thing came literally from random encounter with the chief of police, and he saw something in me, and he wanted to talk to me about it, and he really just persuaded me to consider a career. So. Okay,
so you're going to college. Now, were you still actively training when you were in college in martial arts?
Yes. As a matter of fact, so I did a collaboration with the police department teaching self-defense on ISU campus, and I had a martial arts program through Campus Rec. That's how I got connected with the police department.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're finding time to do your studies. You're finding time to continue to train martial arts. You have your social life. After college, you start a family, you get married. You're still continuing to train. You're still continuing to teach. You've got your career in law enforcement. How did you balance that time, and why did you feel that it was so important to continue training martial arts?
Well, I guess you could say I'm kind of unique in that it's my passion. Like, since I started, there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't thought about it, read about it, trained, something along those lines. So, like, I know that I was put here for that purpose. So not everybody has that level of passion. But for me, as far as the benefits, it's like there isn't many things that martial arts can't, I guess, attached to, right, if you think about it. So whether we're talking about confidence, whether we're talking about problem solving, like your ability to address an issue and solve it, those things transfer over into other areas of your life. Obviously your physical health, because I have a PhD in kinesiology, I study human movement, I study exercise science, but to be honest with you, I don't particularly enjoy going to the gym and lifting weights or running on the treadmill. And I much prefer to get that workout in through things like jiu-jitsu, where I'm actually being addressed with problems to solve physically with a training partner, right? So, and it also gives me those benefits of developing my strength, maintaining my cardiovascular endurance, all of these things. So for me, I enjoy that a whole lot better than the more traditional means of physical fitness.
Okay, and you know, during that time, you decided I want to write a book. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
So, well, I transitioned from policing into more academic research side. So while I was a police officer, I pursued my PhD. Ended up finishing my PhD in 2020. I was studying connecting martial arts to police training. And so after I finished, got into my job in academia as a professor, I felt like I had all of these thoughts and all of these experiences that I really wanted to put out. And so one thing about academia is you get the summers off. And I'm not the type of person that could just sit around for an entire summer and do nothing. It's just not in me. I have to be doing something. So I decided, let me get some of these thoughts written down and some of these perspectives. And so it just started with a simple Word document and just kind of writing my thoughts and feelings, and then it turned into a book. I mean, I created an outline, and I'm like, what is it that I really want out of this? And ultimately, the book is called Stop Resisting. The whole idea was, how do I get officers to train or to understand the importance of training in martial arts, particularly officers who have agencies that don't necessarily have the funds to support them getting consistent control tactics training. So I feel like martial arts, even for me when I was a cop, was my means of getting that training when my department wasn't necessarily able to support it on a week-to-week basis. So this book was really about that, about what are the best martial arts for law enforcement, what are the best tactics, what do you look for in a martial arts school as a police officer. I want to give that to law enforcement community.
Okay, and what are the benefits that you've experienced during your time as, a police officer from training in the martial arts, whether it's, being able to remain calm in stressful situations, or just the community that you build with members of the team who aren't in law enforcement?
Mm-hmm. So I kind of categorize this in 3 areas. So we have physical, mental, and social, right? So physically, that's the things I talked about. Some officers like going to the gym. Some may not be motivated to do things like that. So physically, you're able to stay in shape through martial arts training, and it's fun, right? I genuinely enjoy it, and I think others can kind of agree with that. So for officers that want to be able to maintain their physical fitness but don't necessarily enjoy more traditional means, I think martial arts is a good route to take. It also doubles as them developing their ability to defend themselves or to control a subject effectively if they are to need to do that on the job. So that serves that dual benefit. And then mentally, right, so we're talking about management of stress. Right, I'm actually working on a research study now, which the data has been collected. Now I'm in the process of finishing the manuscript, and it addresses that, right? How officers have these perceptions, positive perceptions. So I study officers who currently train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the overwhelming majority said they experienced some stress reduction, right? In terms of being on the mats and being able to train consistently. So there's that. There's a stress reduction. There's the confidence. That's another thing that has come up in multiple studies, that confidence certainly increases as a result of consistent training. Your confidence in your ability to handle yourself, and in some cases, just your general self-confidence overall. And then third being social. And by socially, I mean building that relationship with your community. So here's the thing with law enforcement. Sometimes you can end up in this world of you spend time with your family, and anybody that you communicate with outside of your family is other cops. So you really lose connection with the community unless you're on a police call. Problem with that is when people call the police, or if you are enforcing the law, a lot of times these encounters are not the most positive. So you're having this consistent interaction with the community that is always in the line of work, and you really kind of lose touch. Martial arts allows this opportunity for officers and civilians to connect in a way that they would normally be able to, right? So if you're on the mats with people from all different walks of life, you're able to get to know them as people. You're able to change a lot of the perceptions that you might build as a result of being on the job. Same vice versa. These civilians, people who are not in law enforcement, they may have a perception of law enforcement based on negative experiences they've had. And if they don't have any other interaction with cops, what is their perception? But now you're on the mats with a police officer. In many cases, you may not even know that he's a cop, and you find out 6 months later that he's a cop, and this was like your best training partner, right, on the mat. So it really bridges that gap, right? It really creates that connection between law enforcement and the community.
And what would you say to, a police chief who, has, this view that, well, if my officers are training on the mats, they're going to get injured, and I can't afford having a police officer who's doing physical therapy instead of doing their job?
Oh, that's a good one. That comes up a lot, right? So my belief system behind that is, one, yes, there's an inherent risk of injury with any physical activity. And if we're talking about the field of law enforcement, you're in a job that carries probably one of the greatest risks. So for me, it's like you're actually going to see less injuries as a result of an officer staying physically fit from training and being able to have the ability to effectively control a subject if they're in a situation. So now when they get out there on the street, they are safer. And the civilians that they're tasked with controlling and arresting under those situations are much safer with a trained officer. So I'd argue that, is there a potential risk of injury? Yes, but that risk is always there with any physical activity. I don't think that means that we should not be training, right? This would be my response to that. And again, if you look at the research, there's been numerous studies that have come out that shows that when properly trained, when the environment is set up in the way that it's supposed to be, the injury risks are nowhere near as large as many people perceive them to be. But yes, there is a risk, but again, that risk comes with any physical activity.
Right, and also too, I've seen individuals who, they've had the same surgery for an injury, but the person who was physically fit, whether they were going to the gym, eating right, training martial arts, they recovered a lot faster than the individual who, after work, regardless of what kind of work they do, sit on the couch and they watch TV.
Yes. And the other thing to consider is oftentimes when these injuries occur, they are a result of an officer not doing anything for several years and then going and doing 8 hours of training on them. This is where those injuries occur. Well, yes, if you did nothing for several years, you're completely sedentary, and then all of a sudden you get thrown in this environment where now we're expecting you to complete this 8 hour, 16-hour training over multiple days, then yes. But if you have an officer that's training once a week for several years, you're much less likely to see that injury occur as a result of that training.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you brought up in the book, Stop Resisting, about the endurance, the physical fitness of police officers, where like out of the academy you're in really good shape, but like you just said, if you have that job for 7 years and you're not doing these tests, you're more likely to get injured. If you are in a simple, I say simple, I've never been in the line of work, but just a foot pursuit of an individual. Obviously someone who is exercising is going to have a better job condition-wise catching that suspect versus having to stop because they're exhausted. What advice would you give to law enforcement agents or just the general public when it comes to finding a martial arts school, whether it's jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, boxing? What advice do you have?
I always recommend using the power of Google, first of all, looking for schools in your community, and first going in and checking it out, like looking at the environment. What is the training environment like? Do you see a lot of ego, right? Do you see negligence on the side of the instructors? Check out all of those things, and then do a trial class and see if it's for you, right? Talk to the owner about what your goals are, right? And then if they align with what you want to do, then you go for it. But I think rushing into it, I don't think is the way to go. I think it's good for people to explore what options they have, watch the class first, and then go in. And again, if people need guidance on that, the book is literally all about that. Stop Resisting. I wrote the book for that purpose. So if someone wants to know, again, what arts to study. For me, my opinion is if you are in law enforcement in particular, really anybody, but for me, grappling-based arts are the most ideal, especially for law enforcement. Why? Because of the emphasis on control, right? Controlling the human body is the focal point. So for me, that's where I would start. You do want to incorporate, I think at some point, striking into your regimen. You have to at least understand that possibility is going to happen and know how to manage the distance for it. But really, it's about control.
Okay. And if there's someone watching the video right now, they're interested in picking up Stop Resisting, what's the best way for them to get their hands on a copy? Amazon.com.
So if you were to just Google Stop Resisting, Jeremy Butler, I guess I've done a pretty good job with the book because it does I am ranked on Google,
Good.
so I think I did pretty good in that. So if you type "Stop Resisting Jeremy Butler," you will see the book. It is on Amazon.com. Or if you are in the West Dundee community, you can reach out to me and I can get it to you personally. But Amazon.com is probably the best source.
All right, awesome. Dr. Jeremy Butler. And then finally, if someone is looking to have you come and speak to their department, do you offer that as a service?
Yes, I do. So www.jeremybutlerphd.com is my website, and this is where you can book speaking engagements, also do self-defense workshops, as well as police training workshops. I'm currently the lead control tactics instructor at a police academy, actually here in Illinois, where they use my curriculum for that particular academy. So I do a lot of training with early career law enforcement as well as in-service training.
All right, awesome. Best of luck with the future. Thanks for checking out the video. If you have any further questions, follow the links below. Thanks for watching.